All right, good day, class. So today we're going to continue to look at social institutions, right? So let me just share my screen here. Why did I select from beginning? All right, so I already sent you an introductory video on social institutions. So we understand what a social institution is. We would have would have understood by now what the functions of the institutions are, so on and so forth. So you already have that information. So we're going to just start from here. Let's remove this off the screen. All right, so I hope everything looks normal on your end. All right, so we understand from the introductory video that I sent to you, as well as the YouTube video that I sent to you about the different social institutions that are present in any given society, right? So you would have seen in your video that a discussion of the peer group was included and a discussion of the media was included. From a sociological perspective, the family, education, religion, government, media, and the peer group are all social institutions. However, for your CXC examinations, as it is outlined on the syllabus, these are the four major social institutions that you will be focusing on, or that you will need to know well, right? Or have adequate knowledge of these four social institutions, right? However, we have discussed extensively what the role of the family is. So we understand what the role of the family is. And there's already a video posted on the role of the family. So just understanding what the family's role is, you understand what its function as an institution is, right? So we understand that with the family, you have the responsibility of procreation, meaning to regenerate the species, to have babies, right? And to socialize those children concerning the values and the norms, what is normal in that given society, right? So we understand the functions of the family. You have all of that, the types of the family. We have gone through all of that. So I won't spend this video belaboring what we've already discussed. So we're going to jump into the second or another social institution, and that social institution is education or the education system. You'll see school in some books, all referring to the same thing. All right, so we understand what education is. So if you could just read with me so we can be engaged. I don't want to fall asleep with the video, so I need to keep you active and focused on what I'm doing. All right, so education, a form of learning in which the knowledge, skills, and habits of a group of people are transferred from one generation to the next through teaching, training, or research. So imparting knowledge is what education really is. So when we're looking at the functions of education, we understand that the school is described as a social institution because it is an established organization which has an identifiable structure, right, that will influence social order. And by social order, I mean how society functions. If a society is supposed to function, because remember, we looked at groups, right? Because remember, we're building. So we looked at the types of groups, we looked at the functions of the groups, all right? So if social order is supposed to exist, meaning that if society, which is one large group, right, one country would be considered one large group. So if that group is going to function, there must be rules, there must be regulations, there must be consequences and sanctions if these regulations and rules are not followed, right? And you can see that in the school system. So the fact that when you don't hand in an assignment on time, you get a 0, and knowing that you'll get that 0 will motivate you, right? It will motivate you to hand in your assignment on time. The fact that when you enter a classroom, for example, when we had face-to-face interactions, the fact that when you entered a classroom, you were expected to stand to say good morning. When the teacher says good morning to you, you sit. So the teacher walks in, good morning, Miss Brown, and how are you today? And the teacher will say, I'm fine, thank you. And you? We are fine. And then she'll say, or he'll say, all right, please be seated. And everybody is seated and class starts. And this is done for every class. And you'll find this more at the kindergarten and the primary level, at in the more younger age ranges or the age groups, you will find that they have this structured way of interacting with their teachers, right? So when we're looking at education, and we'll get into what those functions really are there to do, but understanding that the role of education is to extend the social order means that the school is there to teach you how to follow the rules and regulations as they are set out in society. So as it is defined by the culture, as it is defined by the way of life of the members of that given population, right? So when we say that it has an identifiable structure, because remember, we're talking about formal groups, right? So the education system, school, would be a formal group because it has an identifiable structure. We know who the principal is, and we know what he or she has in terms of their roles. We know the vice principal. We know that we have the teachers. We know that we have the students. We know that we have the ancillary staff. We know that at each level, there are different roles and responsibilities. We understand that concept. That is the identifiable structure that school has, right? And with having this function, or better yet, with having this structure, they are able to teach and preserve their common goal, which is to educate, so teaching you math, English, reading, writing, arithmetic. So it's teaching you to write, teaching you to read, teaching you math, right? So that is the core function of school or of the education system. But there are, so that core function, intellectual purposes, to teach basic cognitive skills such as reading, writing, mathematics. So basically to transmit specific knowledge, as you see here. But let me show you this. So when I discuss, you won't be confused. So the school has what we call latent and manifest functions. So manifest functions are openly stated functions with intended goals, while latent functions are hidden, unstated functions with sometimes unintended purposes. So the manifest function of school, of education, would be this: intellectual purposes. Teach you how to read, to teach you how to write, to teach you math, to teach you how to calculate, so to tap into that logical side of your brain, right? So to transmit knowledge would be the manifest function. And when something is manifested, right, that's something you can see. So when you go to a class, you'll have a syllabus. and everybody has access to the syllabus. So on the syllabus, it will clearly state that you're supposed to know how to define family. You're supposed to define groups. You're supposed to explain what the function of, the family is, what the function of education is. That would be the manifest function of school, right? So you are clearly given an outline as to what you are supposed to know. That is the manifest function. So the intellectual purposes, that would be the manifest function. So you go into an English class, you're supposed to learn English, right? You go into a math class, you know you're going to be learning all concepts related to math. And history is the same thing, and social studies for all subjects. When you go in, you understand this is the content that I am going to learn. This is what we're going to cover, right? So that will be the manifest functions. The latent functions, as you would have seen in the video, are those unstated functions of a group or of the institution. So the latent functions of school would be, for example, we have the political purposes. So to inculcate allegiance to the existing political order. So essentially to teach patriotism, right? To teach patriotism. So we know that we're supposed to love our country. So when we go to devotions, for example, we will say our national anthem, and you know that you'll get punished if while they are singing the national anthem, you are fidgeting or you're even talking, or even worse, you're moving about. You're punished for that. That is because they are trying to inculcate allegiance, meaning that you must have a sense of loyalty to your country. So you understand that, listen, when I am pledging, I'm not just saying a random pledge, just a random little thing. Okay, like, you know, we're all saying this. No, they're trying to teach a sense of nationhood, so you can be committed. Remember, we were looking at the functions of groups, and we spoke about commitment and loyalty. It's the same thing within education, because remember, you know, all of these social institutions are different kinds of groups, right? These are formal groups, right? So all of that, we all of what we looked at related to groups and the common goals and the loyalty and the commitment and the authority and the importance of leadership, all of those concepts apply and still pertain when we're looking to explain the other social institutions, which are other social groups. They are groups, right? So understanding that you stand for the national anthem, you don't speak, you don't fidget, right? And you can look at countries like the United States, how loyal and how reverent they are when it comes to their national anthem, right? These things are taught in school. So when you see students being punished because they're fidgeting or talking or walking around, that's a latent function of education, right? Because it may not be on a syllabus to say you are supposed to be committed and loyal to your country, right? And the syllabus will make it manifest. But the latent function where you are punished if you do certain things, while the national anthem is being sung, while the pledge is being said, if you're doing anything other than that, you're going to be punished. It's teaching you loyalty. So you can remember when you were in school and you had to stand in the sun because you know, you were talking during the national anthem or during the pledge, right? That's a latent function. So it's not being taught in class that you're supposed to be committed, but through your day-to-day interactions going to school, you are able to understand the importance of loyalty and commitment and allegiance. When you're looking at even, I have PNP and JLP here, and this you may not see at the high school level, but when you get to the college level, you will see that the political parties will have different clubs present on campus. So you will have G2K, and you may still hear about them in the news, which is the Jamaica Labour Party's club, so to speak. And you would have PNPYO, which would be the PNP's club on on a college campus. So you're getting the young minds to join these clubs. So by the time they graduate from college, for example, they have an allegiance to a political party. That makes sense? So these would be the latent functions. So we're not teaching you that you must be loyal to a party or to your country in class, right? But you are learning it as you go along based on what we accept and what we do not accept. You understand what is expected of you, right? To prepare citizens who will participate in the political order, to assimilate diverse cultural groups into the political order. So we understand how things are done. We understand that we live in a democratic society and you register to vote. And when you go in, you have the right to exercise your freedom as it relates to choosing whomever you want to run your country. You are able to participate in that process, right? And if you look at it, me teaching you about, and we're going to look at it more when we're looking at government, I'll be teaching you about your rights as a citizen, and I'll be teaching you about the voting process, and I'll be teaching you about the different types of voters. So on the manifest function of the educational system, I am letting you know what voting is, that it is your right. But the latent function of that is to get across to you the importance of voting, right? I may even get across, well, I'm a floating voter, and we'll get more into what that is when we're looking at government, which means that I don't have an allegiance to a party, I have an allegiance to my country. So if whoever is in charge of the PNP, if that manifesto, so their intentions for the country, what they plan to do, if that manifesto benefits me and my family and our needs and expectations, if it's coming from the PNP and it sounds good, I'm voting for the PNP. If the JLP has a manifesto and what they're saying sounds good, and it sounds like it will benefit myself and my family, that is who I'm going to vote for, right? And you'll understand the importance of being an impartial voter, because what that does, it puts the political party in a position to try to cater to your needs, as opposed to saying, well, they're going to vote for me because they're PNP. And their grandmothers and great-grandmothers and great-grandfathers, and everybody's a PNP, so they're going to vote for me, or everybody's JLP, so they're going to vote for me, so I don't have to do much, right? Which is what you see here. But we'll focus on that a little bit more when we're looking at government next week. But when we're looking at the latent functions, there are things that we teach you in education that is not on a syllabus, right? And that is the role of the educational institution. So the social purpose, to socialize children into the various roles, behavior, and values of society. So in Jamaica, for example, we're a Christian society. So you'll find that in many of our schools, we will have devotions, right? We'll have devotions, and schools can either be Baptist, you have Catholic schools, you have Anglican schools, you have Moravian schools, and why you will find instances where church set up schools, and we'll look at that a little bit more, is that it allows them to pass on the value systems of that particular denomination, right? So the social purpose, so you'll have your devotions, so you will be singing songs about being thankful, give thanks with a grateful heart. You remember those songs? Okay, but you have songs like that you sing. But it's the idea of knowing that God is the creator and respecting him, and knowing that you're supposed to pray, and they teach you to not steal. So you'll find that a lot of things that you learn in church, you also learned it in school. right? So that would be a latent function of the education system. So you are understanding what society expects of you. You're understanding what you should know to be able to participate in that particular society. And this is done through the educational system, right? You're also going to see here economic purpose. The economic purpose, which is to prepare students for their later occupational roles. So the manifest part of that, which is the part you can clearly see, the manifest role in terms of preparing you for your occupation. If you want to be a scientist, all right, we're going to ensure that you take physics, chemistry, biology, all right? If it is that you want to be an artist, we're going to ensure that you complete arts and craft at the CSEC level. We're going to ensure that you do it at the CAPE level. If it is that you want to do business, we're going to ensure that you do principles of business, principles of accounts. In some schools, they do EDPM, which is a subject that teaches you about office procedures, right? So based on what you want to do, there are subjects that you have to study. That would be the manifest role in preparing you for your occupation, right? So what you can see. So you want to do the sciences, so you do science subjects. You want to do business, you do the business subjects. But when we're looking at occupational roles, we also have to look at the fact that schools will tell you, based on even your gender, what you are supposed to be studying. And that would be a latent function, right? And you remember, latent are those things that are taught that are not on any syllabus, that is not clearly stated. But you'll find, for example, in many boys' schools, they will do technical drawing, they will do woodwork, they will do what's the other subjects? Electrical engineering. I can't remember the name of the subject, but electrical works. I can't remember the exact title of the subject. I think it's electronics and works, or electrical works, something of the sort. But they're basically teaching you, all those things related to electrical works and so forth. I can't remember the exact title, but you get my point. So in boys' schools, you'll do those hands-on subjects. So you do the technical drawing, you do the woodwork, you do the electrical work, and you'll find that that's present in the boys' schools. You don't go to girls' schools, right, and see them doing woodwork, technical drawing, electrical works. Instead, when you go to the girls' schools, you'll see that they'll teach clothing and textile. They will teach food and nutrition, right? So what you're seeing there is a latent function of education that is essentially saying that young girls should know how to cook, you should know how to sew, you should know how to maintain your home. While boys, they need to know how to work with their hands, you need to know woodwork, you need to know technical drawing, you need to do electrical work, right? So the latent function is where you can see that the education system reinforces the gender roles present in society, right? So that would be a latent function of the educational system, right? So just skipping through. So manifest functions of the school: social control, socialization placement, transmitting culture, promoting social and political integration, and agents of change. Social control, you realize that, well, it varies from school to schools, but any well-run school, if you are supposed to go in and disrespect a teacher, you can be expelled, or at least you're going to be suspended. And if you're suspended, upon your return, you have to apologize to the school, you have to apologize to the teacher. You're essentially made an example of. because they need you to understand that you're supposed to respect authority, right? That is what we mean when we say social control, right? So you understand what your role is. Standing when a teacher walks into the room is teaching you deference, knowing that an adult entered the room. This is how I show my respect. From the moment you are in my space, I'm supposed to be in a mode of respect, right? Of regard for the adult I'm interacting with. That is a latent function of the school. It is teaching you are supposed to respect authority. So when you enter the world of work, you understand that you are supposed to speak to your boss a particular way. There's a level of respect that you must have when it comes to your leaders in society. So when you're in the workplace, you respect your boss, but even more so to ensure that the country runs. When a prime minister enters the room, you see everybody straighten up. The place has to look a certain way. You must dress your best. You must speak your best. You must be on top of the best of everything about you, how you dress, how you speak, the interactions or the conversations that you're allowed to have is going to be determined by not the fact that you're speaking to another human or teaching you that, listen, based on this person's level of authority, there's a level of respect that you must have, right? So that is what we mean when we're talking about social control and socialization placement in terms of knowing what you're supposed to do, knowing your roles in society, where you fall in society. Are you lower class? Are you middle class? Are you upper class? And what is associated with that? You will even find, you will even find that as it relates to socialization and socialization as it relates to class, you will find that schools who cater to the different socioeconomic backgrounds in terms of the socioeconomic backgrounds of the students teach different things. What do I mean by that? So you'll find that a school that is in a lower class community will teach different subjects from a school that is in an upper class community. And the idea behind that is that based on where you are in terms of where you rank socially in a society, you are taught how you function at that level. Again, what do I mean by that? You're in a lower class community, you'll find that lower class schools in the lower classes teach different things. So you will find that they'll teach things like office procedures, they'll do less subjects, they'll do more hands-on subjects. So they'll do the woodwork, they will do, you know, as I said, the office procedures, teaching you how to type, how quickly you're supposed to type, how you're supposed to prepare documents. So they're essentially teaching you how to work in an office, right? You'll find that schools that are catering to middle class students will have a variety of subjects that they will teach. So what studies have shown is that schools that are in the middle class society will teach those students how to operate in many instances as managers, right? So at the lower classes, we'll teach you the technical things, the hands-on things that you need to do when you go to work for somebody, right? Lower classes. Then for the middle class, well, we're going to give you a little bit more because you're going to work for somebody, but you're also going to manage those who are coming in from the lower classes. So at the middle class, they will teach you how to be managers. But what you find is that in many schools that are catering to those members of the upper class, you will find that they focus on entrepreneurship, business creation, business management, right? So essentially, You're teaching the upper classes to create the business. You're teaching the middle classes to work in these businesses, and you're teaching those from the to work in these businesses, as I should say, as managers, right? To oversee the everyday activities of those of the lower class. And the members of the lower class, they will be the workers. So you know how to perform the task, right? So when we're looking at the manifest functions of school and the latent functions of school, that is what it means. All right, so let me pause here and then we will continue and look at the other social institutions.